everyone. The complexity of defining God has been a profound and enduring challenge throughout human history, engaging the deepest thinkers, philosophers, theologians, and ordinary individuals alike. This complexity arises from the multifaceted nature of the concept of God, which transcends simple definitions and embodies ideas that are simultaneously metaphysical, psychological, moral, and existential. Across cultures and eras, attempts to define God have been shaped by linguistic limitations, cultural context, personal experiences, and evolving understandings of the world. The very idea of God touches upon the most fundamental questions of existence. Why are we here? What is the nature of reality? How should we live? These are not questions that lend themselves to straightforward answers, and the concept of God often serves as a central figure in addressing them. One of the reasons defining God is so complex is that the concept itself exists at the intersection of the known and the unknown. It attempts to articulate what is beyond human comprehension, what transcends the physical world and lies at the foundation of being itself. This pursuit often leads to paradoxes. For instance, how can something be omnipresent, yet intangible? Omnipotent, yet allowing suffering, or eternal, yet personally relatable? These paradoxes are not flaws in the concept, but rather reflections of its depth and the limits of human cognition. Language, as a tool for communication, struggles to encapsulate infinite or transcendent ideas. Words are inherently finite, constructed from human experience within a material world, making them ill-suited for describing something that may exist beyond space, time, and matter. Cultural diversity adds another layer of complexity. Throughout history, different societies have conceptualized God in dramatically different ways. In monotheistic traditions, God is often viewed as a singular, omniscient, omnipotent creator. In polytheistic systems, gods represent various aspects of nature and human experience, each embodying specific forces or ideals. Pantheistic beliefs equate God with the universe itself, suggesting that all of existence is divine. Meanwhile, some Eastern philosophies approach divinity as an impersonal ultimate reality or consciousness rather than a distinct being. These diverse interpretations show that the definition of God is deeply intertwined with the cultural, historical, and environmental contexts in which it develops. End quote. Psychologically, the human mind naturally seeks patterns and meaning in the world. This tendency extends to the existential domain, where the idea of God often serves as a framework for understanding life's purpose and the moral structure of the universe. The concept of God can act as a container for humanity's highest ideals: order, justice, compassion, and truth, providing a model for how individuals and societies should aspire to live. Simultaneously, God can symbolize the unknown or the chaotic forces of nature that humans struggle to comprehend and control. This duality, God as both the ultimate good and the mysterious unknown, reflects the internal psychological struggle to reconcile order and chaos, security and uncertainty. Historical attempts to define God have been influenced by the progression of human knowledge and societal structures. In ancient times, gods were often closely tied to natural phenomena, thunder, rain, fertility, because these forces directly impacted survival and were poorly understood. As scientific knowledge expanded, these roles shifted, and conceptions of God became more abstract, focusing on metaphysical and ethical dimensions rather than natural events. Yet even in the modern era, where scientific understanding has grown immensely, the question of God persists. This persistence suggests that the idea of God fulfills needs that empirical knowledge alone cannot satisfy, such as the need for meaning, moral guidance, and existential comfort. Philosophical traditions have also grappled with the definition of God, often moving beyond simple belief to complex arguments about the nature of existence itself. Classical philosophical arguments for God's existence, such as the ontological, cosmological, and teleological arguments, each offer different perspectives, but ultimately reveal how challenging it is to define God in universally acceptable terms. Each argument confronts the limits of human reasoning when applied to the infinite or the absolute. Even within philosophical discourse, the definition of God shifts, sometimes viewed as a being, sometimes as a principle, sometimes as a process, or an ultimate reality. The personal and subjective nature of religious experience complicates the effort to define God. Now, for many, God is not merely a theoretical concept, but a deeply felt presence, a relationship that defies rational explanation. Mystical experiences, prayer, and personal revelations often lead individuals to unique and personal understandings of God, which may not align with formal doctrines or philosophical definitions. This subjectivity means that any attempt to define God must account for the deeply personal and varied ways people experience the divine, further complicating any universal definition. In modern times, the rise of secularism and scientific materialism has led some to question the necessity or validity of the concept of God, while others reinterpret God in more symbolic or psychological terms. For some, God represents the embodiment of human ideals or the collective unconscious, rather than a supernatural being. This shift does not necessarily simplify the definition of God, but rather adds new dimensions to it, blending psychological insight with traditional religious thought. Complexity of defining God stems from the fact that it is an attempt to grasp something that may be fundamentally beyond the capacity of human understanding. It is an exploration that spans language, culture, psychology, philosophy, and personal experience. The richness of this concept reflects the depth of human thought and the universal quest to find meaning in existence. In seeking to define God, humanity engages in one of its most profound and enduring inquiries, a search that may never yield a definitive answer, but continues to shape individual lives and collective civilizations in profound ways. Understanding God as an archetypal ideal offers a profound insight into how human beings conceptualize divinity beyond literal interpretations. This perspective suggests that God is not solely a supernatural being, but also represents the highest ideals and virtues that humanity strives to embody. Throughout history, the image of God has evolved to mirror the most significant moral, psychological, and existential values of societies. This understanding ties deeply into the psychological frameworks that drive human behavior, culture, and societal development. By viewing God as an archetype, one acknowledges that the divine serves as a model for the ultimate good, the embodiment of order, and the guiding force behind ethical behavior and purpose. In psychological terms, an archetype is a universal symbol or pattern that exists within the collective unconscious, a concept extensively explored by Carl Jung. Archetypes manifest through myths, stories, and cultural symbols, influencing human behavior and thought. The figure of God, in this sense, is the most powerful archetype, an embodiment of the ultimate authority, the creator of order from chaos, and the source of meaning and morality. This archetype reflects humanity's need to conceptualize a higher power that governs the universe and provides a framework for understanding existence. It serves as a mental construct that allows people to navigate life's complexities by aligning themselves with the highest possible standard of being. Throughout different cultures and religions, the archetypal image of God adapts to represent the core values and ideals of the society. In monotheistic religions, God often embodies omniscience, omnipotence, and omnibenevolence, reflecting the human aspiration for ultimate knowledge, power, and goodness. In these traditions, God is the supreme moral authority, setting standards for right and wrong and guiding human behavior toward virtue. This divine figure becomes the measure against which all actions are judged, compelling individuals to strive for moral excellence. By aligning their lives with the attributes of this archetypal God, such as justice, compassion, and wisdom, people find direction and meaning. In polytheistic systems, gods and goddesses often represent different archetypal forces of nature and aspects of human psychology. For example, in Greek mythology, Zeus represents authority and order, while Athena embodies wisdom and strategic warfare. These deities personify fundamental human experiences and natural phenomena, making them relatable and accessible. They serve as models for specific virtues or warnings against particular vices. This multiplicity allows for a more nuanced understanding of the human condition, acknowledging that individuals are influenced by various conflicting drives and ideals. Each god represents a piece of the larger human experience, illustrating how divine archetypes are tailored to reflect social norms and values. Viewing God as an archetypal ideal also helps explain the enduring relevance of religious stories and myths. These narratives are not just historical accounts or religious doctrines, they are symbolic representations of human struggles, aspirations, and moral dilemmas. Stories like the biblical tale of Moses leading his people to freedom, or the Hindu epic of Arjuna seeking guidance from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, illustrate profound psychological and moral truths. End quote. These stories depict the human journey through chaos and suffering toward order and meaning, using divine figures as representations of internal psychological processes and external realities. God, in these stories, symbolizes the guiding force that helps individuals confront and overcome their greatest challenges. The archetypal Mircea, which contains the story of Isaac and the rest of the human race. The archetypal Mircea symbolizes the guiding force that helps individuals confront and overcome their greatest challenges. The archetypal concept of God bridges the gap between individual identity and collective cultural values. When societies uphold a concept of God that embodies justice, compassion, and truth, they implicitly encourage these values within their social structures. This collective ideal influences laws, ethical norms, and cultural practices, shaping how communities function and evolve. The concept of God, therefore, is not static but evolves alongside society, adapting to new moral insights and cultural shifts. For example, interpretations of God's justice in ancient societies might have aligned with strict retribution, while modern interpretations might emphasize restorative justice and mercy. This evolution shows how the archetypal ideal of God grows with human understanding and ethical development. Recognizing God as an archetypal ideal allows for a more inclusive and flexible understanding of spirituality. In secular or non-religious contexts, the archetype of God can be seen in the pursuit of personal excellence, truth, or the greater good. For some, this might mean striving toward the ideal of unconditional love, as represented by religious figures like Jesus, or the relentless pursuit of enlightenment, as embodied by the Buddha. The declaration to cherish a sense of the truth is also represented by the Buddha. Even in non-theistic frameworks, people often orient themselves toward ideals that serve a similar psychological function, guiding behavior, providing meaning, and fostering a sense of purpose. In this way, the archetypal concept of God transcends religious boundaries and becomes a universal element of the human psyche. The archetypal understanding of God highlights the dynamic relationship between the individual and the collective. On a personal level, individuals internalize divine ideals, shaping their character and guiding their decisions. On a societal level, shared concepts of God foster unity and coherence, aligning individual actions with communal goals. This dual function of the God archetype ensures that it remains a powerful force in shaping both personal development and social order. But the internalization of divine ideals challenges individuals to rise above their base instincts, to confront suffering with resilience. Understanding God as an archetypal ideal reveals the depth and adaptability of this concept across cultures and throughout history. It underscores how deeply embedded the divine is in the human search for meaning, morality, and purpose. God, in this sense, is not confined to a singular definition, but is a living symbol of humanity's highest aspirations and deepest truths. This archetype serves as both a personal guide and a collective ideal, challenging individuals and societies to strive for order, virtue, and transcendence in an ever-changing world. The psychological necessity of God is a concept that delves into the profound role that belief in a higher power plays in shaping the human experience. For centuries, the idea of God has provided individuals and societies with a framework for understanding existence, coping with suffering, and navigating the complexities of life. This necessity is not solely about religious doctrine or spiritual practices, but rather about the deep psychological functions that the concept of God fulfills. The human mind, with its inherent need for meaning, order, and security, finds in God a symbol that addresses existential anxieties and offers a pathway toward personal and collective stability. Anyone in the chat or in the group questions, comments, responds. At the core of human psychology lies the struggle to reconcile the realities of life, chaos, suffering, mortality, with the desire for purpose and meaning. The world is inherently unpredictable, filled with challenges and uncertainties that can overwhelm the human spirit. In this context, the belief in God serves as a psychological anchor, offering a sense of order in the face of chaos. So, the idea that there is a higher power governing the universe provides comfort by suggesting that life is not random or meaningless, but part of a larger, purposeful design. This belief can alleviate existential dread by assuring individuals that their struggles are not in vain and that their lives hold significance within a grander scheme. The concept of God also addresses the psychological need for moral orientation. Humans are moral creatures, constantly making decisions that impact themselves and others. The belief in a divine being who embodies perfect goodness and justice offers a moral compass that guides behavior and ethical decision-making. For many, God represents the ultimate standard of right and wrong, serving as an internalized authority that encourages accountability and responsibility. This internal moral framework helps individuals navigate complex social environments, fostering a sense of conscience and encouraging behavior that aligns with societal values and personal integrity. Belief in God provides psychological resilience in the face of suffering. Life inevitably involves pain, loss, and adversity, and the human mind seeks ways to endure and make sense of these experiences. The idea that suffering has meaning, that it is part of a divine plan or serves a greater purpose, can help individuals cope with hardship. In many religious traditions, suffering is viewed as a test of faith, a means of spiritual growth, or a path to redemption. This perspective transforms suffering from a purely negative experience into an opportunity for personal development and a deeper connection with the divine. It offers hope and perseverance, allowing individuals to endure life's hardships with the belief that their pain is not meaningless. The psychological necessity of God also manifests in the human need for community and belonging. Shared beliefs in a higher power create bonds between individuals, fostering social cohesion and collective identity. Religious communities offer support, structure, and a sense of belonging, which are vital for mental well-being. Participating in communal rituals, traditions, and shared values reinforces social connections and provides individuals with a supportive network. This social aspect of belief satisfies the innate human need for connection and collective purpose, reducing feelings of isolation and strengthening resilience. Additionally, the belief in God often instills a sense of personal agency and empowerment. When individuals perceive themselves as part of a divine plan or as being guided by a higher power, they may feel more capable of facing challenges and pursuing their goals. The idea that God is watching over them or that they are fulfilling a divine purpose can motivate people to strive for self-improvement and to act with courage and determination. This sense of empowerment is psychologically significant because it helps individuals overcome feelings of helplessness and despair, fostering a proactive and hopeful approach to life. The psychological necessity of God extends to the human confrontation with mortality. Awareness of death is a uniquely human experience, and it brings with it profound existential anxiety. The belief in an afterlife or in some form of continued existence beyond death offers comfort and mitigates the fear of non-existence. Religious doctrines that promise eternal life, reincarnation, or union with the divine provide individuals with a way to transcend the finality of death. This belief not only eases personal anxiety, but also influences how people live, encouraging them to act in ways that align with the hope of a positive afterlife or spiritual fulfillment. As people face death, they often experience dramatic changes of perception and consciousness. Furthermore, the concept of God fulfills the psychological need for meaning-making. Human beings are naturally inclined to seek patterns and explanations for the world around them. In the absence of clear answers, the belief in a higher power provides a framework for interpreting life events. Whether it's attributing success to divine blessings or viewing adversity as a test of faith, belief in God offers narratives that make sense of life's randomness. This meaning-making process is essential for mental health as it helps individuals integrate their experiences into a coherent story that provides direction and understanding. The psychological necessity of God is also evident in how belief systems adapt to personal and cultural contexts. As societies evolve and individuals encounter new challenges, their conceptions of God and spirituality often shift to meet emerging psychological needs. For some, God becomes a symbol of social justice, inspiring activism and compassion. For others, God represents inner peace and mindfulness, guiding personal well-being. This adaptability highlights how deeply intertwined the concept of God is with the psychological mechanisms that drive human growth and adaptation. Even in secular contexts where traditional beliefs in God may wane, the psychological functions that belief once fulfilled are often transferred to other ideals. Concepts such as the pursuit of truth, justice, or human potential can serve similar roles in providing meaning, purpose, and moral guidance. This suggests that the psychological structures that once supported belief in God are deeply embedded in human nature, persisting even as the symbols and narratives surrounding them evolve. The psychological necessity of God lies in the profound ways that belief in a higher power addresses core human needs. It offers a sense of order in chaos, a moral compass for decision-making, resilience in suffering, comfort in mortality, and a framework for meaning-making. Whether through traditional religious belief or through traditional religious belief, or through reimagined spiritual ideals, the concept of God continues to fulfill essential psychological functions that help individuals navigate the complexities of existence. This necessity is not merely a product of cultural tradition, but a reflection of the deep psychological architecture that shapes human thought, emotion, and behavior. Symbolism and metaphor in religious thought are essential tools for conveying complex, abstract, and often ineffable ideas about existence, morality, and the divine. Throughout history, human beings have grappled with questions that surpass the limits of literal understanding, questions about the nature of life, the purpose of suffering, the structure of the universe, and the meaning of existence itself. In attempting to answer these questions, religious traditions across cultures have relied heavily on symbols and metaphors to articulate profound truths that cannot be fully expressed through direct language. These symbolic frameworks enable individuals and communities to engage with ideas that are otherwise too vast, abstract, or paradoxical to grasp in purely rational terms. End quote. Religious symbols serve as bridges between the known and the unknown, providing a way to conceptualize and interact with concepts that exist beyond sensory experience. For example, in Christianity, the image of the cross is not merely a historical reference to the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It symbolizes sacrifice, redemption, suffering, and salvation. This single symbol encapsulates complex theological ideas about the nature of human suffering and the possibility of spiritual renewal. Similarly, in Hinduism, the image of Shiva dancing within a ring of fire represents both destruction and creation, illustrating the cyclical nature of the universe. These symbols condense expansive philosophical ideas into accessible forms that can be emotionally and intellectually engaged with by believers. That made me laugh. Works in much the same way, allowing religious texts to communicate layered meanings that operate on multiple levels. When the Bible describes God as a shepherd, it conveys not only the idea of care and guidance, but also evokes images of vulnerability, protection, and the relationship between the divine and humanity. This metaphor allows believers to understand the nature of God's role in their lives without needing to interpret it in a strictly literal sense. Metaphors are powerful because they connect abstract concepts with familiar experiences, making them more relatable and easier to internalize. By drawing from everyday life, metaphors ground transcendent ideas in the concrete realities of human existence. One of the reasons symbolism and metaphor are so prevalent in religious thought is because of the inherent limitations of human language. Language is designed to describe tangible experiences in the material world, but it struggles to articulate concepts like infinity, eternity, or the divine. To overcome this limitation, Religious traditions employ poetic and symbolic language to point toward truths that cannot be fully captured in words. This is evident in mystical traditions across various religions, where descriptions of divine encounters are often filled with paradoxes and metaphors. For example, in Islamic Sufism, the longing for God is described as a kind of burning love, a metaphor that conveys the intensity and transformative power of spiritual desire. Such imagery communicates not just intellectual understanding, but emotional and experiential depth. Symbols and metaphors in religious thought also function as tools for moral and ethical teaching. Parables, myths, and allegories convey lessons that guide behavior and shape cultural values. In Buddhism, the story of Siddhartha Gautama, leaving his palace to confront suffering, is not just a historical account, but a metaphor for the human journey toward enlightenment. His encounters with sickness, old age, and death symbolize the inevitable realities of life that each person must face to grow spiritually. Similarly, the parables told by Jesus in the New Testament, such as the story of the Good Samaritan, use everyday scenarios to teach profound moral lessons about compassion and social responsibility. These stories embed ethical teachings in memorable and impactful narratives, allowing them to resonate across generations. Religious symbols also serve as focal points for communal identity and shared belief. They provide a common language through which communities can express and reinforce their collective values and spiritual aspirations. Rituals and ceremonies often center around symbolic actions and objects that embody the beliefs of a group. The act of breaking bread in Christian communion is symbolic of unity and remembrance, transforming a simple physical act into a deeply spiritual experience. In Hindu rituals, the use of fire in ceremonies symbolizes purity and the presence of divine energy.